G'day, bloody kids. Welcome to, I guess this is a community service announcement discussion. I was talking with Nick, and we were saying, wouldn't it be nice if this was a more positive, reason
Yeah,
for
if
getting the
we had
three
the
of us
stream under
together?
better circumstances. Yeah, much better circumstances. Unfortunately.
But unfortunately, it is not. It is, pretty devastating. I think it's probably the word that I've been using mostly. Pretty devastating
Yeah.
what we're facing here in Australia. I'm hoping things are not lagging too much. I'm seeing a little bit of lag and things, so I'm hoping that things go okay. But apologies if we're getting the kind of Chinese action movie dubbed thing where the mouth is moving and the vocals don't match up. But anyway, I am joined today by Dr. Colin Mendelsohn, who there's so many things to say about Colin. He's been fighting for harm reduction for what 30 plus years, Colin, or more. Yeah.
Yeah, like 40 years for been smoking,
Yep.
working in the vaping area for about nearly 10 years, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Colin is obviously an expert, an advocate of harm reduction for not just vaping, but obviously that's what he's been focusing on for the last decade or so. And so I've got him on here to help us sort of break down what we're going to be facing here in Australia coming in March, what we've already got happening, and then for a bit of the American perspective,
No.
because America is no
Hey.
stranger to
We love some prohibition. We do. We love it. We love we love some prohibition. Heavyweight is how I would describe Colin Mendelsohn. Heavyweight. He's a heavyweight. He's got heavyweight credentials.
Yeah.
If there's a person we should be listening to about this topic, it's Colin Mendelsohn.
way more qualified than either Nick or
Then
I.
either of us combined times infinity, we're not as qualified.
Okay, moving on.
Yeah, so we're going to be breaking it down. I've got some notes. I'm never really good at these sorts of things. I usually wing it, which is not great for my guests. But what I think we should probably start with is what is currently in place as of the first, because things have changed as of the 1st of January. And so I guess what have we currently got in place in regards to vaping regulations? So as of the 1st of January, they banned the importation of disposables regardless of whether they've got nicotine or not. Your
All
single-use stuff,
disposables.
all disposables, they're gone. They did this, and they did all of these new regulations, and I guess before we kind of really get into them is, I did a video at the beginning of 2023, and then another one a few months later, and then another one, towards the end of the year, and we were under the impression that they were going to need to do legislative changes to bring about these regulations. So we were calling politicians, calling Greens ministers, trying to really push politicians to block these legislative changes. But what did they do, Colin? What did they do to blindside us?
Well, they just passed all these changes under what are called regulations, not legislation. So they made their own decisions, and the TGA and the health minister just passed various rules, which can be undone. Legislation, it gets locked in, so it's much harder to change. But they went ahead and made most of the changes under regulation. There are certain things they still have to legislate for, which they'll be passing a bill for at the end of February. But really, they're just the icing on the cake, I think.
Yeah, we'll get into what is going to be coming in terms of the legislation, because that is, like you say, the sort of the final push to really mess up the domestic manufacturers here. But yeah, so essentially they none of the calls to the politicians, none of it mattered, because at the end of the day, they just used existing framework and regulatory bodies, the TGA.
Is that something that they can normally just do, is like act unilaterally and just make a regulation without? I'm an American. I don't quite know if that's like a normal thing, but if FDA acted completely unilaterally and kind of just did something without congressional approval, it would kind of raise a big hubbub, raise a big stink. Is that something that the TGA normally does? Is just, we did these regulations and we didn't need to
Yeah.
ask anybody, you know?
Yeah, they have a lot of power to do their own thing within certain limits, often
Okay,
politically
interesting.
motivated, and yes, they make their own decisions and just change the rules.
Yeah.
Wow.
They usually
Yeah.
say we've had a consultation and we've sought a wide range of opinions, which of course is just a box ticking exercise. So they can say, well, we really did listen to other people, when of course they'd already decided what to do before they made
Sure.
the changes. And we see that all
That
the
sounds
time.
familiar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Basically, there's a lot more power the TGA has here than, say, the FDA has in Australia. It is a different sort of structure, allowing them to kind of just do this stuff as long as there's there's a regulation already in place with regards to tobacco and vaping. They just amended that to
Sure.
and then changed the Customs Act, which gave the Border Force powers to seize and all the rest of it. So before we, if you guys have got questions and stuff, we're going to have a question section towards the end, because we'll probably answer a lot of this stuff as we're going through. So if you've got questions about other sort of stuff, just hold on to them, and we'll definitely try and get to all of them towards the end. So that's how they did it. They've gone and changed it regardless of legislation and regardless of what the democratic process, because obviously we have quite a few advocates within the parliament, different ministers, federally and state, that are pro-vaping. And so, there was a good chance that we could have had some more democratic discussion and maybe come to a more, democratic conclusion, but they bypassed all of that. So returning to what's currently in place, you cannot import any disposables. There is still the prescription system in place, correct, Colin?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you're only legally entitled to possess and vape nicotine liquids with a prescription from a registered medical practitioner. Although now it's changed, there are also nurse practitioners who can write prescriptions, but and the doctors and nurses don't need to get approval in advance. So any of them can write prescriptions if they know what they're doing and if they approve of it. And if you can find one, that'll do it for you.
Yeah, we'll get to all of that sort of stuff. Definitely the lack of accessibility via prescription system, but yeah. So for those that are looking to know whether they can still continue to get products, for now you can. So you can still get your prescription. You can still import your nicotine up to a 3-month supply, your nicotine liquids up to a 3-month supply, and all of the hardware and things like that. Still available through vape stores without nicotine in it, and still available for purchase internationally.
I have a question.
Yes.
They say up to a 3-month supply. It's just so fascinating.
Yeah.
They say who determines that? Does the user determine that, or does a third party determine that? Because my 3-month supply is probably not a lot of other people's 3-month supply, and vice versa. Literally everybody's different. Everybody uses a little less, a little more, a little 12 milligram, 18. Like, that's kind of bananas. Who determines this?
Well, it's all based on how much you use, Nick, for the individual. So the doctor has to decide how much each person needs for a 3-month supply. The College of GP guidelines recommend that doctors and nurses don't give scripts for more than 3-month supply at a time. So they're encouraging doctors to stick with that. So they're encouraging people to go back several times a year to the doctor or the nurse to get that refilled, which is just ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty bananas when there's the lack of clarity, and there has been for a long time, because that 3-month supply system has been in place for quite a while. So for now, you can still access that prescription model. You can still import your stuff. You can still purchase from your vape stores and that sort of thing. But I guess what is coming in March is going to remove all of that. It's going to destroy everything that you've sort of previously been able to access. Colin, do you want to run through what's coming as of March 1st? And this is not, again, guys, this is not up for will they, won't they. It is 100%.
It's all been decided. Yeah, so what they've said is from the 1st of March, all vaping products will be deemed prohibited imports. That includes all liquids, whether they've got nicotine or not, and all vaping devices. And you can only access them legally through a pharmacy with a prescription. And that even goes for hardware. Oh, no, with hardware, you can buy it through a pharmacy without a prescription, but you can't, the vape shops, for example, can't sell any e-liquids with nicotine or not. They can't sell any vaping devices, refillables, disposables, no accessories, no bottles and batteries. So basically, the vape shops are going to have to close. And the only legal pathway will be for you to purchase with a prescription from a registered medical practitioner or a nurse practitioner from a pharmacy that's willing to stock these products. So they're introducing new standards as well. So it means that from the 1st of March, you'll only be able to get tobacco, mint or menthol flavours. The maximum
you
nicotine...
guys get menthol.
Yeah, right. The maximum nicotine concentration hasn't been determined. It'll probably be 20, knowing the way they're thinking. They're going to have pharmaceutical-like packaging, and products that are going to be available in pharmacies have to be approved before they're sold. So they have to, before they're marketed, they have to say to the government, look, we tick all your boxes so we can go into the pharmacy. So I think a lot of the products won't bother going through that process. So the range in the pharmacies is going to be very small. It's going to be costly. It's going to be unpalatable, a lot of it, but there will be a range of options.
Yeah, and I've got one of the options up on the screen at the moment from Vape, which is a pre-filled pod system. Everyone's saying my mic is a bit low. Is that still a thing?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, they were saying that earlier. You were a bit low.
Is my mic a little louder now, or is it still too quiet? What's going on there, chat? Sounds okay. Is my mic loud enough?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So on the screen is one of these Vape pod things. I've only seen this as a tweet, so I can't guarantee that this information is 100% correct. But this was posted by a vape shop owner here in Australia who a customer brought in, and apparently spent $370 on 5 2 ml cartridges, so 10 mils of liquid. With, I think, no flavor. I think she was saying that it tasted terrible and was spitting in her mouth, and just sounds like a bad pod experience. And cost her, and that's for the Americans watching, that's roughly 250 American dollars, 370 Australian dollars for 10 mils of liquid and a little pod type system. I mean, it doesn't even have variable power, and it's $370.
Yeah, I know. That's not even a Diacodes chip. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart because when we first started vaping, like way back in the day, 2009, 2010, we kind of had to deal with really cruddy technology like this. And it is it's absolutely a barrier to success. Obviously, if it doesn't work well, people aren't going to stick with it. And this is why, I mean, there was so much dual use going on at the beginning because these products were so cruddy. And it wasn't until we modded flashlights into batteries so that we could get better battery life. And we're tearing out the metal bridges in these 510 atomizers and dissecting we did everything we could to innovate it forward into something that's good, and now you can't. Nope, you got to go back.
None of the products that have been
technology.
approved by the TGA are are a long-term business that has been in the industry for years. It's none of your Geek Vape products. It's not your UL stuff. It's not anything that has been developed. It's almost like they're getting people that are at a 2014. 2015 kind of level of technology and asking them to be allowing them to be the only ones available. So the issue is going to be how well these things perform, and we can already hear from customer feedback that it's going to be pretty poor in terms of performance, and it's going to turn people away. They're going to go back to cigarettes.
It is something the manufacturers, the manufacturers have to deliver deliver to the TGA their products with their specifications and satisfying their requirements. And if they do, they can put them on the market and sell them through pharmacies.
The issue
So
is
it will
that
depend,
none of
yeah,
those are
it will
getting
depend on the manufacturers.
none of them are getting approved unless they are, good mates with some of these big pharmaceutical buddies
Well,
in the TGA.
well, there's no officially approved products that have gone through the TGA approval process. That's a different matter. They're not
Yeah.
approved products. They're
Okay.
unapproved therapeutic products, which means they just have to tick the boxes, and the
Right.
TGA will say, yes, we can sell you through the pharmacy. So we don't know what's going to be available from the 1st of March. There may well be UWells and Geek Vapes.
So if they
partner.
get it, approved for a for a non-therapeutic vape, they can then be sold with plain
No,
packaging.
as a therapeutic vape,
Okay,
and then they
sorry,
can be
as a
sold through pharmacies. And they'd have to set up a network, and maybe with pharmacy chains, certain brands would be available readily, but there'll obviously be a lot less than there are now, and you certainly won't get the support that you're used to getting in a vape shop.
No, that's definitely the other thing is your average doctor is not experienced at all, in these areas.
They have no idea, no idea. And the
And
fun,
they still demonize nicotine. Sorry, Colin. They
Yeah.
still demonize nicotine. It makes me insane.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And there's very little training. There was very little training originally when this last change occurred, and they're talking about more training again. But look, I'd suggest very few doctors will bother, and very few will bother to learn what they really need to know.
You're certainly not going to be able to go to your doctor after you've got your Nico vape and be like, "It's spitting in my mouth, doc. How do I fix it?" Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so if you're suspecting they're going to go with a 20 milligram limit, why are we seeing 59 milligram, pharmacy products?
Because the current limit is 100 milligram per mil.
Okay.
So Juul's 59, so they've gone, and the one you mentioned has another strength as well. So for some people who switch from smoking, the high strength is important initially.
Yep.
But there is a lower strength you can go to, but it's not a good strength for most people.
I think even the lower strength is still somewhere around 35 milligrams or something, isn't it?
Yes, but it has a fairly low-powered battery as well, and there's a fairly low amount of cloud. So it's consistent with that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So where are we up to next? So, yeah, basically you're only going to be able to get approved products. What kind of fines are people looking at if they were to import products after the 1st of March?
Yeah, well, they've talked about fines of 330,000 for illegal imports, but I imagine that would be for commercial imports on a large scale. So, yes, they've suggested very serious fines, and it remains to be seen exactly what they will charge for the average punter who wants to bring in something to save his life.
Yeah, but you can expect if they're going to charge a commercial import over 300 grand, that you're probably looking at at least a few thousand for a consumer, or something.
Yeah, they're taking this very seriously. I mean, these regulations are very comprehensive. They've ticked all the boxes, and if they follow through with this, it will be very hard to do it to get around this.
And obviously we don't have any access to flavors from these products. In your experience with your patients over the years, are they looking for flavors, or are they just wanting menthol and tobacco flavor? What has your experiences been with your patients?
Yeah, look, a lot of people start with tobacco because that's what they're used to, but they pretty quickly switch to alternatives. And the research is very clear that that's an important incentive for switching. It does increase quit rates, it reduces relapse rates.
Yep.
If you ban flavors, smoking goes up. I mean, it's
Adults
all a
like
no-brainer.
flavors.
Yeah, adults like flavors, and we want them to switch. But we don't want them to enjoy themselves. So of course we have to do something about that and ban flavors, which is the crazy plan they've come up with.
Yeah. And that, I suppose, brings us into the domestic market, because obviously the importation and everything. Initially, we were looking at vape shops still being able to supply their stock that they had, and I guess because they haven't at this stage got anything in place for a domestic manufacturing ban, we'll get onto them bringing that in. Can can vape shops still keep selling after the 1st of March? Because that was an area that I'm not so clear on. Initially, it was looking like they could, and now I'm seeing that they're not going to be able to.
Well, there was a rule that they could sell off the stock they already had to reduce their losses.
Yep.
But I'm not sure how long that will go. But theoretically, from the 1st of March, they've said vape shops will not be able to sell any liquids or any hardware. So I'm not sure if that carryover period will extend beyond that. I suspect it won't, because I think they'll want to lock it down on the 1st of March, so there's no ambiguity.
So
And I
there's
think
every chance.
a lot of vape shops have already closed. I heard Mixology just closed their chain last week, and a lot are closing, and I totally get that. From the 1st of March, they'll have no business at all.
And are they offering any compensation to the hundreds of businesses and thousands of people that have been put into unemployment and business closure?
None at all, no. Butler was very clear about that.
Yeah, which is absolutely insane to me, because typically when a regulation is changed, or if they want to build a highway and they want to take your house to build the highway, they have to pay you for your house. And it seems in this situation the government is completely ignoring that sort of... Generally, it's a legal requirement, but because they're taking your property, essentially.
Well, that's right. These are legal, legitimate businesses that have been doing a public service, a public health service, and the government's treating them as the black market, as the illegitimate sellers of illegal products. In fact, they've been doing all the right things. It's the black market that's been breaking the rules, and yet they're being punished in spite of their compliance and all the good work they've done, and that's not fair.
Would this happen in America, Nick? Could they do something like this?
Well, I mean, the FDA kind of in a roundabout way did it by denying, 60 million products and essentially giving vape shops not much to sell that's, FDA authorized on the market.
Yeah.
So many vape shops in the US had to kind of like sublet, and now you see, you can get bongs and, dry herb vaporizers and sodas, and it's like a convenience, but there's also vape stuff too, and disposables and pods and things like that. So there's, other things, but the FDA tried to do a big market clearing. For the most part, I guess they succeeded. There's some lawsuits happening, but I don't want to talk about America.
Yeah. I see a lot of comments saying this is because you let them take your guns. They'd never do this in America. We'd be out there with our guns.
No, we're not. I mean, I don't think. I don't know. I don't see. We're not going to storm the FDA with our Second Amendments and demand that they legalize vaping or that they authorize smoke products or something like that. But luckily in America, we do love a good lawsuit. We love lawyers. We love lawsuits. We love our courts, and that's how vaping is going to be decided, I think, in the States.
Yeah, they do seem to be making progress there, don't they, in the courts?
Which is some very big progress. Shout out to Vapetasia and Triton Distribution. Vapetasia has been a company in the vape industry for almost as long as I can remember. Heyday of vaping, probably 2013, 14 they got involved. And this is their lawsuit, and they're one of the OG companies, and they've been seeing this through to the end, and they just got a very favorable ruling in the Fifth Circuit, and they ruled that FDA acted arbitrarily and capriciously and essentially broke the law. And it's good. It was a good win.
Yeah.
Well, I love suing regulators.
Yeah.
So there are more. Obviously, we've talked about how it's all gone basically. As of the 1st of March, you can't go importing any of it. You're not going to be able to access any of it. What are they going to be bringing in this new legislation? Because obviously, technically, as of the 1st of March, you could still manufacture liquid here in Australia. The vape shop can't sell it, but you can still manufacture.
How does that work?
Liquids here. So what are they bringing with this new legislation then in sort of next month, Colin?
Yeah, so this bill is about domestic manufacture, supply, advertising, and commercial possession. So it's just kind of the icing on the cake. It's saying, well, you can't bring anything in, and we're not going to let you make and sell anything either. And I think that's a real shame, because there's a huge potential international market for our products. I mean, we make some very good products in Australia,
Yep.
and there's
Yeah.
a potential export market. And if we could add nicotine, it would be even bigger. The government's shooting itself in the foot in its determination to close this down. They're undermining a huge potential economic windfall, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
They
Some of
want to
my
make money
favorite
off the
liquids
cigarette
come from Australia. I mean,
Okay.
seriously, some of my favorite liquids come from Australia.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Shout
Yeah.
out to the Aussie liquid manufacturers, because it's
Yeah.
it's one thing to shut down the domestic market here, but if they could at least still keep manufacturing and shipping out from Australia, that would be at least something for them to continue their livelihood. But from what I understand, Oceania Labs and things like that, they're shutting up shop. They can't do anything. They can see the writing on the wall.
Yeah. Yeah. It's coming unless this bill is challenged and defeated in the Senate, and it
Yep.
may still well be. I mean, unfortunately, the other regulations will still be in place, but that's one possibility that can be undone.
How can they, like, they can't ban a flavor that's used in liquids, because it's the same flavoring used in candy and ice cream and food manufacturing. Capella and Flavora, they're not vape companies. They were flavor companies long before vaping came around. How and PGVG, like it's gonna really mess up the manufacturing industry outside of vaping if they tried to ban that. How can they possibly ban PGVG and flavorings? I even heard they were trying to ban the bottles that they come in, which
Yeah. They are. Yeah, look, they can't ban those, but they can ban the nicotine.
yeah.
And then that's the key ingredient, which they're really going to be blocking and fining people for.
Absolutely insane. So you're not going to be able to import it.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to make it. You're only going to be able to buy it from pharmacies. And this is all been, obviously we had some challenges, some issues with the previous government, with the Liberal government. We had the health minister Hunt, but they at least let us have the import scheme. When things were looking really bad, they backed away after a fair bit of outrage. They backed away and let us continue importing it. Then the Labor government came in and they've gone, double hard on this. Where are the Liberals now? Do you have a feeling as to where they are now with regards to regulation? Are they alongside Labor in this?
Look, I think the political support is growing. I mean, one thing we found from a recent Redbridge survey, a public survey, was that 88% of adult voters support regulating vapes like tobacco or other adult consumer products. So there's a lot of support there, and I mean, politicians are very concerned about that. The Liberals, we think, are privately supportive, but they haven't made that commitment yet. It's all very political. It's all about what's safe and what they should be seen doing, and in some ways, it's easier to do nothing, but to be seen to be tough on the tobacco industry and on protecting kids. So you're playing these political games. We know the Nationals are in favour. The Greens haven't declared themselves, but I would be very surprised if they don't come out in favour of. But again, politics is at play. They may do a deal and decide not to support vaping and to support something else. A lot of the backbench are in favour. And I think we could get the numbers to block this in the Senate, to be honest. But unfortunately, it's only a small part of the total package.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, apart from a few juice manufacturers that may still continue to try and produce and export, I think, in the overall industry, and certainly in terms of consumer access, the 80% of it is done. Not going to be able to import your nicotine for one, which is really going to, once your stocks run down, then you're forced into cigarettes or some of these products from pharmacies.
Look, I wouldn't write off the pharmacy products altogether. I mean, there are currently some good pod devices in pharmacies that I've always recommended to patients. I mean, I've had to do things legally, but there are products like Relax, a big Chinese brand, Wild by Instinct, which is an American brand with an Australian arm, which are excellent products, and I've seen the good safety results on their emissions, and they're popular. They come in a wide range of flavours. I understand Relax is going to have several tobacco, several mint, several menthol. So, people have a bit of a choice. But these are good quality,
A bit of a
well-made.
choice.
Yeah, a bit of a choice, not a lot of choice. I know, but I mean,
Bit of a
people who want
choice.
to do it purely, there will be some good products, and it remains to be seen what other products will be accepted and what other manufacturers will apply to have their products approved and be put into pharmacies. Like I said, they don't have to go through this whole rigmarole of getting product approval like you do with a drug. They just have to tick the boxes and say, right, we haven't got this ingredient, we've got this much nicotine, we've met these standards, we're going on the market, and the TGA says, yes, that's fine. So it's up to them. And again, for the hardware, there are criteria for the hardware. That's probably a good thing, safety and quality standards. Sure. And if SMOC says, well, we're going to put our devices into pharmacies, and they tick the boxes and they find pharmacies that'll stock them, you'll be able to buy them in Australia. And then hopefully you'll be able to buy bottled refill liquids with nicotine. So there may be the option to get, for some people, what they're used to having.
Yeah. You're not going to see your.
There won't be the range. There won't be the range like we've got now. Where you can have any flavour you like in any product you want.
But I think we know that it's definitely going to have an impact on the ability for people to, or the ability for these products to actually get people to quit smoking. It's not going to be as effective as what we currently have, is it?
Absolutely, and people aren't going to get the support from the vape shops. I mean, they're going to go to the doctor. The doctor's got no idea.
And the pharmacies aren't even allowed to advertise that they actually supply vape products either, are they?
No, they're not anymore. They even just taken the other way. They've just decided to. They've been so comprehensive in this crackdown.
So let's say I do find a doctor who's willing to prescribe me one,
and good luck with that.
That doctor first, and then he prescribes me it, or she, and then I got a lucky dip pharmacy that they have a product that I can get filled there. I got to walk in and you got vapes. And only if you ask, I think, are they allowed to tell you, are they?
Well, that's the thing. There are some online pharmacies that will distribute these products around Australia, and if you upload the script, they will mail them out. But now they're not allowed to advertise that they offer this service or that they have these products. So I don't know how they explain or justify that. Yeah. That's ridiculous. For people who want to comply, they're still saying, well, we're not going to let you find out where to get them. I mean, that's just unforgivable.
Yeah, and for someone that maybe in a rural, isolated community who has been ordering their products online because they don't have an easy access to a vape shop or a doctor or a pharmacy, those people now potentially have to go and travel maybe hundreds of kilometres to a pharmacy and then find out that they don't actually have vape products.
Yeah,
I think what people are going to do, though, Sam, is what they're already doing, which is to buy from the black market.
That's a good segue to the next sort of point about, I think, what is going to happen, because we know the black market is already rife. That's why the government has started to come in with all of these regulations. What do you think is going to happen with the black market from here?
Look, I think the black market is just going to continue as it is. It'll go underground. We just know from experience that when you ban something that people want badly enough, the criminal networks will provide a way of getting it to you. And we've just seen this so many times through history. Yes, the fines will go up, but the prices will go up. The quality won't be great. There'll be all sorts of criminal activity associated with it. We're already seeing fire bombings and arson and extortion in Australia, executions. All that's part of this whole game that we're going to be playing. But I think they will supply these products. And yes, they won't be supplied perhaps by the mum and dad corner shops, but there'll be a lot of agents who will be willing to take that risk.
Nick, what's happened with prohibition in because obviously certain states in America have been quite prohibitive with flavors and things like that. Has the black market? What's happened there with that black market? Has that just gone away? It's kind of just
everywhere. Yeah, exactly. They banned flavors in California. Now they're nowhere to be found. Yeah. I can't find them at every convenience store and every head shop that I go into. There's one that I go into near my mailbox almost every time I go to my mailbox just to say hi to the guy and I don't know. It feels like a sitcom. Hey, the door ding, hey, and I grab a soda and candy or whatever, and I chat up with the guy, and he's just got walls of vapes and liquids and disposables, and it's sure, they passed this proposition to ban flavored vapes, but the, I mean, they can't enforce the entire state, every convenience store in the entire state all at once. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of everywhere. It's everywhere. It's just
And I think
everywhere.
that's the point, Nick, too. That enforcement is just a pipe dream. I mean, even
Yeah.
the Border Force has said, the Border Force director of the Border Force here and some other experts said, look, there's no way we can intercept these products. We're concerned about, A, we're under resourced anyway, and B, we're concerned about guns and narcotics, and we just haven't got the resources. They scan like 1 or 2% of containers. Even if you bring in
Sure.
10 containers and 8 get intercepted, you still make a profit. There's so much money in these products, and the
Yeah.
prices will go up. It's just, they just can't stop it. And they think they can. They think, oh, we've ticked all the boxes now, we'll just stop this. But the black market, which is currently providing over 90% of vapes in Australia, will just
Yeah.
continue. And they'll keep supplying kids, which is
Yeah.
the whole purpose of this whole exercise, to stop the
Yeah.
kids
Yep.
getting supplied. But they're not addressing that.
Yeah, so they're going to
Yeah.
ruin an industry, destroy thousands of businesses, ruin people's lives, all in the name of, you know, preventing kids from becoming addicted to nicotine, and it's all going to be for nothing. We're going to see,
And not smoking cigarettes.
yeah,
Yeah.
Not,
yeah,
and
that's
not
what,
smoking
and that's what I
cigarettes.
want to, for the international viewers out there, the Aussies will know. There is no change to the accessibility of tobacco products in Australia. The taxes keep going up, but the shops that you can get them at, every service station, every supermarket, corner store, you can, and in certain states like Victoria and New South Wales, you can order your tobacco online. You can't in South Australia where I am, but in Victoria, I think in New South Wales, you can still order cigarettes from the major supermarkets online. You can get your milk, your bread, and your cigarettes. None of that has been changed. Yet we're being paraded this, you know, we're doing it for the kids type thing, but cigarette and you know, illegal tobacco is increased as well, you know, and they've publicly come out and said that they've lost hundreds of millions of dollars in tobacco taxes because of the black market tobacco.
Billions. And you know what percentage of the vapors in Australia are actually kids? What percentage would you think, Nick, of vapors
I
are
would
kids?
guess, based on basically no information, 3%, 4%. I don't know.
8%. In the latest government survey, it was 8%. So they're making this policy to protect kids from a lifetime of nicotine addiction, from a dangerous and addictive product, and throwing the 92% of users under the bus, the adult.
Yeah.
The adults who are most at risk, who are at immediate and substantial risk, they're being sacrificed because of an exaggerated and potential concern about young people, and only a small number. Very few are regular vapors anyway. I mean, you know the whole story, and we know it's not a gateway to smoking. So it's all based on
daily use versus ever use. It's a really bizarre way to say that 92% of youth don't vape.
And it's probably
No, what we're saying
about
is 100 of the 100% of vapors, only 8% are actually under 18.
And it'd be interesting to see, Colin, you might have some stats on this. Of that 8% of vapors that are kids, what is the likelihood that if vaping didn't exist, that it would be cigarettes that they would be using?
Exactly. And we're seeing that everywhere, and certainly in the US and the UK and New Zealand, as vaping rates go up, smoking rates go down faster. So there's growing evidence that vaping is displacing smoking. It's diverting kids who would have smoked, and it's diverting kids who do smoke away from smoking. And for most kids, it's just a transient, experimental thing they do for a while, then they stop.
I smoked when I was 14. I started smoking when I was 14. So it's not. It's that age that you're going to start experimenting and doing things. And if smoking was the only option, it would be cigarettes. But now there's at least a 95% less harmful option. I'm not saying we should have kids vaping. That's definitely not a good idea. But I know which one I would rather my kid experiment with.
Yeah,
Sure,
exactly.
yeah,
They
100%.
It's just crazy to block the safer option and leave only smoking for them. And I think it will slow the decline in smoking amongst young people. Without vaping as a safer alternative, I think it's going to have a harmful effect on public health.
It's certainly a lot easier to give up vaping than it is to give up cigarettes, and that's been
Yeah,
proven,
yeah, oh yeah,
in tons of studies.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yep,
But I think the black
1000%.
market, I just want to say that like, I think we're very negative about how this is all going to pan out, but I think pharma will be able to supply some vapors. And I think the black market will probably keep supplying a lot of the people who are currently using black market products now,
Yeah,
probably without much harm. I mean, we don't want people using black market products. They're not regulated. There's no quality control. But when they have been looked at, there's probably not a lot of harm any different to the regulated products.
yeah,
There have been a couple of studies that have looked at the Australian black market products, and they're not ideal, but they're not too bad, and they're
yeah.
certainly better than smoking. And
The
I think
eye gets,
overall,
I
from
think,
a
are the
public
big
health
one.
point of view,
I think
sorry,
the
the
eye
eye
get is
get,
that's the main one that seems to be floating around
yeah,
the black market.
yeah, I get HQD and GunPod, and they've been assessed at the University of Wollongong, and they just, they're high in nicotine, they're averaging 40, 45 milligrams of nicotine salt, but
Sure.
um, there's not, there's nothing too harmful that they've been able to find, and
And I've been
certainly much
seeing
so smoking.
it seems to have really ramped up the propaganda that has been going around Australia recently. From, I don't know whether it's the government's behind it or not, but I'm seeing a lot of, I saw something the other day. These little metal tube things that you literally are just breathing air through, that are being branded as a quit aid for vaping. To quit vaping, it's a little metal tube that basically restricts the
Oh yeah,
airflow
FUM.
to a
You're talking
similar.
about FUM?
Yeah, there's a couple of them
Yeah.
now, and they're
So dumb.
saying stuff. I saw one of the ads popped up the other day, and it said vaping alters your body's hormones, which
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's one of the frustrating things. That's why I find this area so difficult. I'm normally science driven, and I just can't believe the deliberate misinformation and doubt and fear that's being spread by authorities who must know they're wrong. I mean, the research is so clear now for most of
They have to
what we
know.
know about these products.
is it the scientific centre up in Queensland has a big thing up saying that what's in your vape, and it's talking about weed killer. How is a
Yeah,
scientific organisation
yeah,
allowed to put
yeah.
out
That's disgraceful.
something like that?
Yeah. Yeah, to say there's a product, there's a chemical in your vape which is used in weed killer is a totally meaningless scientific statement. It doesn't refer to the dose. It doesn't refer to that being the harmful ingredient in the weed killer. I mean, it's just scare. It's
Right.
just scare tactics. And I think kids see through that.
Yeah.
They're saying, why are the kids still vaping? We've told them not to do it, and
Yeah.
we've banned disposables. They're still vaping. Well, wonder why that is. Well, kids know you're lying to them.
Yeah.
And you're telling them
We
not to
told
do
them not to
something.
do it.
It's like all the ads, back in the
My
80s
favorite.
around marijuana in the United States, and people were
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
that's not true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I know
and
that's
it's probably
rubbish.
you're right. Kids can see through that, and I think a lot of even like I don't know older kids like 17s and 18s, even into the 20s, like they've already felt lied to by the government. With things like weed and things. So there's already distrust.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
if there's already distrust there, and the government tells you, it's like, we told them not to do it.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course they don't trust you. It's like I went through DARE as a kid. You told me that weed was a gateway to heroin and made me terrified of weed my entire life. And then slowly you discovered that it's not a gateway. Oh, fascinating. Wow, they lied to
Yeah.
me for a real long time. I believed that.
Yeah. And you
And
don't believe them anymore. And trust in government
Yeah.
is at record lows apparently, which is no surprise.
Now, there are
Shocking.
some other nicotine products available on the market, for a while. The other one that I've noticed recently is it's not snus because it's not actually a tobacco product, but the pouches, the nicotine pouches that people are putting, under their lips.
Zin.
A company I came across just recently here in Australia, Oz Nicopods, they're selling with nicotine in the pouches from Victoria. How are they legally doing that, Colin? Is that there's not a grey area that I'm missing here where you can sell nicotine
no.
in a different form, is there?
No. Well, one thing that is around is the HYT brand, which is being sold by Hylic, and I think it's available in America. So this is a nicotine analog that has all the effects of nicotine, but when you test it, it doesn't have nicotine. So it's a synthetic version of nicotine. Probably it's metadone, which is a variation of nicotine. But the problem is, and it's a way of bypassing the laws.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, we don't know. It's like with illicit drugs, where they produce all these synthetic variations to get through, bypass the system. But we don't know what the health risks are with that. I think it's risky.
And before people jump in with, oh, well, can we just use synthetic nicotine here in Australia? The problem is these laws that are coming in are not just on nicotine. It's all vaping. If it looks like a vape, if it performs like a vape, then it's banned.
Yeah.
Sure,
Even if there's no nicotine, you can't have. You can't have
import
nicotine.
liquid with this synthetic nicotine in it, but it's a vape liquid. So regardless of whether it's got nicotine of any kind or not, you can't be importing it.
No, exactly.
Wow.
But that's after the 1st of March. And as you mentioned, people can order 3 months supply at a time. But one thing you didn't mention is that people can order as many times as they want.
Yeah.
So you could order every day,
absolutely,
3 months supply, and there's no law that I'm aware of that you can't. So
no, you can stock up. You can absolutely stockpile. So for sure, I know a lot of people that are doing that because they know that getting access to these products is really difficult and tricky, and certainly not going to get good products. What would your message be, Nick? I know what you're going to say, but I want to give you a chance.
No, listen. In all honesty, if I was an Australian vapor, I would be stocking up on as much nicotine base as I possibly could and learning how to DIY, and then investing in some a few solid regulated mods, some good rebuildables with wire because you can rebuild with wire for. Make yourself self-sustainable, and that's what I would do. If there is the like libertarian American streak in me where I'm just like, break the law. Another part of me wants to be like, just break the law. Just throw the middle finger to everybody. Just keep importing shit. Break the law. That's what I would do. But if I was in Australia, I think I would stock up and DIY and get some good rebuildables and invest in some good mods, some mechs that we're gonna, will last you for years and years and years and years and years.
Yeah.
Until inevitably this fails.
Yeah.
Which could happen sooner rather than later.
Colin, it's not going to work.
No, it's not going to work. I think you're right. I think the key is for people to have enough supplies to get them through until this does inevitably fail. And that, if that means ordering every 3 months and getting it as much, of liquid and hardware as you need to cover you for the next 2 or 3 years, it may be a long time before then, or it may take a bit longer. But the worst thing in the world is, of course, to go back to smoking. So I think people really need to give priority.
Yeah, I have seen a few people saying that they go back to the smokes. There's other ways. There are ways that you cannot do that. Certainly to at least get you through a while, because they're going to have to revisit this, because the kid vaping rates, the children vaping rates are not going to decline suddenly. They're going to continue, and they'll probably grow.
They'll probably grow, and then they'll probably decline like they did in the US. I mean, it's a bit of a novelty. We're telling kids not to do it, so of course they're going to do it. But then they'll lose interest, and the rates will decline. But the introduction of these restrictions is not going to stop kids vaping. It's not going to stop the black market. No. And I think very few people will go to the doctor. I mean, there's been a lot of bad feedback. People finding a doctor is very hard. Doctors often give them a lecture. People don't want a lecture. They just want their vape. They're told, try this nicotine patch, try Champix. And then you've got to find the pharmacist, and of course they're incredibly expensive. And people who smoke tend to have little money. So there's a very limited range of products that is likely to be available, and you won't get the support. So the doctor model just won't work.
No.
Yeah,
the doctors won't. The doctors don't want to be involved.
What's going to what's going to happen is people are going to try, and then the prescription vape is going to be bad, and then they're going to go, okay, I guess vaping doesn't work. And then just kind of, I hopefully they don't, but I have a feeling people would just write off vaping. I've heard stories like this in the past where it's like, oh, well, years ago I tried a blue and it didn't work, so I just assumed vaping wasn't for me. And then it wasn't until years later, blah, 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 I tried again. But man, people are going to have a bad first experience and go, I can't believe this actually works for people. Smoke, 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 smoke.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've always said to smokers who switch, it often takes a while to find the right, device, nicotine strength, flavor, and you've just got to experiment. Don't get up with the first one or two devices. It's going to be much harder to do that with the pharmacy model. You're not going to be able to go to the pharmacist and say, well, this one didn't work. What will I do now? It's going to be hit and miss. And I think you're right that people will give up much more readily than they otherwise would have.
Yeah.
The one other area I was going to cover before we jump into a few questions is tourists. How is this going to impact tourists? Because there is a little clause, because they don't want to. They're very, very clever here, the government. They don't want to impact the tourism side of things. So they have very cleverly made a little exemption for tourists.
Yeah. Yeah, the exemption for tourists is the maximum allowable quantity is 2 vapes in total, 20 vape accessories, for example, pods, or 200 mils of vape liquid, e-liquid.
Yeah.
So it's enough to sort of get you in and last you a few days, and then good luck after that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Steam Crave products, 200 mils probably not going to last you very long, is it?
Yeah,
no, right.
You'll rip through that. So wait, the Australian government grants more freedom to visitors than to their own citizens?
Yeah.
That's kind of bananas. I mean, there would be an uproar in America if they announced, well, if you're visiting here, you get health care, but just not for our citizens. Yeah. That's unbelievable to me.
Yeah, I guess it's a political decision to not discourage visitors, because a lot of vapors now travel, and they'll have to deal with this.
Yeah, I've had people contact me saying I'm moving to Australia for work. What do I do? And I'm like, unfortunately, you can only bring in a certain amount with you. Well, if you're coming now, bring in heaps. But if you're coming after March 1st, you can only bring a little bit, and then you're going to have to access the black market or the pharmaceutical system.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
All right, so let's. I don't want to go over stuff again and again. I mean, I think it's fairly clear what we're looking at in terms of after March 1st. Questions from the chat. If you guys have got any questions regarding these changes for myself, for Colin, for Nick, try and keep them on topic. We'll have other streams. You can ask Nick his favorite IDA.
Sure, yeah. It's the recoil. That's it. Easily. Next thing. Yeah. I think there were a few super chats that came in too.
We did have a few super chats. So while we're just getting a few questions in, we did have some super chats. What have we got here? Let me just see if I can find
Soft Carrots is asking if this affects dry herb vaporizers in any capacity, if they're including that with vaping.
Colin, do you want to
I don't know.
One? Does it affect the dry herb? I don't think it does. I think I've seen from my reading, dry herb stuff is not affected.
HTPs are still have a huge barrier. You have to get approval, and all sorts of forms have to be filled in. So they've made that difficult. There is a question for me here. If I could just say, someone says cheesy cake, cakey cake. He says, would you recommend going to the prescription route to get decent unapproved devices imported by pharmacies to bolster available selection? Well, there are some excellent pod devices available. Like I mentioned, Relax and Wild. Have no interest in them, but I've had a lot of patients who've used them, and they're safe and popular. So these are pod devices, and people often have a pod device as well as their refillable, which they can use in public. So a lot of people find them excellent. So I think there will be some good devices available in pharmacies, but you may not get exactly what you want or what you're used to.
Yeah, and it could be quite. I mean, from what we've seen, the prices are pretty.
Price is kind of
exorbitant.
expensive,
So that's gonna
and
be, and that's another barrier as well for the smoker, is they're trying to find something cheaper, and when you're spending similar amounts of money on a device as you do on smoking, it becomes far less of an incentive. A few super chats. Trap musing. Sorry if I missed it, but do you think they will force through any legislation needed now? Parliament was recalled early, saying it's to deal with the cost of living. I can't see it in the running order. I'm not sure about that, trap musing. The word that we heard is the legislation is sort of for February, but again, that's going to be a very small part of it. It's the domestic manufacturing side of things. In terms of the importation and sale and things, that's all done, and that's coming the first. But thank you very much for the super chat. Trent, would it be possible for juice companies to sell concentrates to add PGVG to bypass the liquid? Yeah, I mean technically it would, but it would have to be branded as a food flavoring, like a candy mix, a cake mix or something like that. You can't have it branded, and potentially it may not even be able to come in a vape bottle because they're banning the bottles as well. So. But there is essentially a bottle shot type thing where it's just the flavoring and then you add your own PGVG. That is a possibility for companies to do. Thank you for the super chat. The real Jeff FM. Be careful with telling people to stock up. Australian Border Force is seizing parcels from New Zealand, even when they have scripts. Should not order more than 10 bottles. That's some good feedback there. Thank you very much, Jeff.
Yeah.
And another one from Trap Musing. FYI, regulations made by the government agencies, Director General of the Department, put them into Minister and Viola's. I used a draft for mental health. I'm not sure what that means there, Trap Musing. But thank you very much for the super chat. Other questions? What have we got here? We've done a good job of answering them.
Yeah, someone had said...
Oh, if I'm using my mod and RDA in public, can I get fined? Thank you, Clouds, by Simon. As far as I know, using a vape product in public, no. You could still use your existing products. They're not going to go after consumers with products. It still does say that you need a prescription to use nicotine, though, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, the health minister. So the health minister said they're not going to prosecute vapers for vaping, but under state law, it is a criminal offence in every state.
Yeah.
To have nicotine and to use it without a prescription.
Correct. So if you want to be super safe, you do need to have a script to continue using your product if it's got nicotine.
Yeah.
I would hope they're not going to go around and where they're going to have little nicotine testing kits like they do for amphetamines and take your liquid, and if it turns blue, where's your script, son? I would hope that it doesn't get to that stage, but potentially if they did test your liquid and it had nicotine in it, you didn't have a script, you could be fined. And there has been a few instances of that. Recently, a gentleman in Perth was fined, I think, $1,200 or $1,500 for possessing a nicotine vape without a script.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, there was a case. Although the health minister has repeatedly said that they won't be, certainly federally, they won't be prosecuting vapers, but there is that state legislation, and there is that it is a criminal offence, and there are serious fines and even jail terms, theoretically, if they chose to use them.
Yeah,
I have an idea. If you're going to go in public and you're vaping, keep a pack of cigarettes in your pocket. So if they're like, "Hey, is that a vape?" You're just like, "No, it's just cigarettes. Just legal cigarettes. It's just cigarettes. No big deal." They're like, "Okay."
No,
throw them off the trail a little bit. Well, it's just cigarettes.
It's wild. I mean, as I said, it's the state. It's the state laws that you would probably be more likely to face a prosecution or a penalty from. Federally, they've said no, they're not going to go after it, but they could very much do you on a state level. As we've seen.
Zamplebox asked an interesting question. Is there an ability to actually protest these actions with any sort of rally at government buildings, etc.?
Well, they passed new protesting laws recently as well, which make it quite hard to organise a protest a lot of the time, which is
really?
I mean, you can still protest, but just on another more nanny state, fucking prohibition type thing, the government has made some changes to protest. But you can protest. It's not going to make any difference because they don't need to worry about passing anything. It's already in. The other problem with Australia is we're all so spread out. It's trying to get a meaningful amount of people into Canberra. It's not so easy.
Sure. Yeah.
But again, I don't want to sound like I'm giving up, but there's really nothing we can do to change March 1st. That is the reality of the league, the law. It's
like
in place,
right now.
it's coming. We just need to, try and ride this out until it inevitably fails, and then hope that we can get something better changed.
It's already failing.
Vape, how will this affect vape store employees, and is there be redundancy packages for employees or subsidies? Dex, no, there's been absolutely nothing. The government has made it very clear they're not going to be, and they even outlined that they're and I'm sure this is very much a reduced cost effect on the businesses. They're saying of about $500,000 per vape store is going to be the damage that they cause by shutting these stores down. But they're not offering any compensation. So, with all the vape stores around Australia, you're looking at roughly $500,000 on average in terms of the economic cost to that business. But there's no redundancy packages. And a lot of them, due to possibly having leases that are in place for a lot longer than when they're going to be able to trade, will have to declare, bankruptcy or insolvency, and so that means that the employees get nothing. They wouldn't even be entitled to wages that haven't been paid and things like that. So it's a complete shit show for the vape stores, which is just absolutely
It's a little dystopian.
And it's a huge loss to public health. I think the vape stores have been the modern stop smoking clinics. They have been at the front line helping people to quit, and we're losing all that expertise and experience.
Yep.
I think that's a tragedy.
Yep.
Slater, thank you very much for the super chat. Is it possible to sue the government in Oz? It's always possible to sue someone. The problem with Australia is, Nick's all about it. We don't have that sue culture in America, and the courts are never as good as, say, in America at actually getting a victory for the vape stores or for us. And the other thing is the government is very good at just dragging these things out. Unless you have
bureaucracy.
If they drag it out for a couple of years, and you want to pay a decent lawyer, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars, and these vape stores just don't have it. Even if you pulled a lot of them together and organized a class action, class actions have been very rarely successful. If Optus can lose your details to Russian hackers and not face any legal ramifications for their inept security systems, what chance do we really have against the government itself? It's I haven't heard anything from any of the sort of big vape businesses in Australia about suing, because I just don't think it's likely to be successful.
We looked into this in 2020, Sam. We had a team of barristers who were willing to provide deep pro bono advice, and we were going to get some lawyers. And we looked at the range of different options, legal pathways, and it was decided that delegated legislation was the way forward. I never quite understood what that was, but at the end of the day, the TGA changed some rules and everything went upside down and we didn't go ahead. But one of the big barriers was going to be, if you lose the court case, you could be up for hundreds of thousands of dollars in costs as well.
Yeah.
And you have to be well funded and willing to wait often for years to get results.
Yeah. It just doesn't seem to be a viable option in terms of litigation for the industry. It's just so costly, and the government can use the fact that it's doing it in the public health interest and all the rest of it. And unless you can prove otherwise, the problem is they don't listen to any of the science.
Yeah.
And there's so much of it, and then just Sweden gets ignored, and that makes me insane.
Yeah.
I don't know how people keep ignoring Sweden.
And all of this
And,
was
and
put
New
to them during
Zealand,
the
Nick. I mean, New
consultation.
Zealand just across the water, they're having extraordinary success just from
Yeah.
vaping, and we're just ignoring that.
It's right there. Yeah.
Same
Right there,
political
Kills
right
me.
there.
structure,
It's a
same
very
social
similar
healthcare
country,
system.
the same tobacco control laws, and the only difference is vaping, and they're rocketing down, and we're going up.
Yeah, yeah, it's yeah, it kind of when you look at it all, you're lost for words at how absolutely pig-headed the government has been in terms of ignoring. And we had this consultation period at the beginning of 2023, and they just ignored all of the science, all of the submissions.
Yeah,
They said, "Oh, we'll take your information," and duly noted that New Zealand is doing this, and the UK is doing that, and countless studies from scientific organisations. We're gonna, but none of that matters because we're gonna ban everything anyway.
yeah, we know best. Yeah,
Big
they're
thanks,
just
couple more
Fun
super chats.
police.
Corbin Harper,
Jeez.
thank you. And Ramp X Gaming, Bogan, my heart goes out to you and all Aussie vapors. Things are getting pretty cuck in Oz, and I hope that the cuck gets sorted out quickly. F the Aussie government. Thank you very much. Ramp X Gaming is well said. And another one from Trapped Musing. Regulations made by the government department and a minister approves them. That is the process. I drafted them for mental health. Oh, okay. So you're talking about the process. So
regulations.
yeah, the drafting processes, and then it just gets approved by the ministers. Lobbying idea. Yeah, look, lobbying has been somewhat successful on a state level here in South Australia when they proposed banning online sales of vapor products years ago. One of the large vape organisations or businesses here engaged a proper media and lobby company and successfully lobbied the minister in charge of banning online sales. And it went really good, and it was looking great, and we had the minister, ready to not ban online sales, and then that minister got involved in some sort of controversy and had the portfolio taken off them, and another minister came in and just put through the online sales ban, which we've had in place in South Australia for many years already. So, yeah, it can be successful, but if they pull the minister out, then your lobbying that you've done is all for nothing.
I must say, Alex Wodak and I have visited hundreds of members of parliament, state and federal.
Yep.
And yes, look, we often get a hearing and we often get support. But at the end of the day, I think the voting is often political. You do what your party tells you, and they might put a word in for it. But at the end of the day, it's the party that makes the decision.
Yeah.
And at the moment, the party is, the party line, certainly in the Labor Party, they stick very carefully to the party line.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. All right, guys. Well, if there are any more questions, I hope I've covered everything. I don't know if there's anything that you think we need to touch on, Colin. I think we've sort of covered.
Someone mentioned batteries. I don't know if that's a big deal. Someone mentioned, can I still get some? Because I still get 21700 batteries, and I don't know if batteries fall under their vague vape umbrella that bottles.
If it's branded as a
do.
vape battery, then no. But I mean, they can't ban 18650s and 21700s. People use those in flashlights, and RC cars, and all sorts of stuff. So you can definitely buy from a battery online retailer anywhere in the world, and as long as it's not a vape branded battery from a vape company as such, then no.
Sure.
They can't stop batteries from coming in.
Yeah.
Can't stop rock and roll. All right.
Look, I would just like to say, as a final word, I think the bottom line is that people should stock up. That's number one. And secondly, if you're using black market products, they will be available. There's no question about that. And although we don't recommend them, they do serve a need, and they're certainly better than smoking.
Yeah, we're not saying that you should use the black market, but there certainly will be a black market there.
Yeah, and I think there will be some farmer models that will be acceptable to a lot of smokers. So there are some very good brands. Admittedly,
we can hope that UL get their new Caliburn G approved by pharmacy, packaging and all the rest of it. It would be great if we can see a few of those well-known, trusted products, some favorite pod systems into the pharmacies, because based on what we can see, there's no reason why they shouldn't be approved if they're put in a plain packaging.
Ugh,
You know,
Yeah.
it's so inefficient. They're just ruining everything good about
yeah,
vaping.
yeah,
You know, they're ruining everything that makes it successful. Even if there was pharmaceutical, even if there were inexpensive pharmaceutical flavored vapes, that still would have some success. But
Yeah.
that's like turning the fire hose down to like a quarter and going, well, it's still hydrating some people. It's like,
yep,
well, open that up. Really get that water flowing. Open vape shops and just watch smoking die.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You
Absolutely.
know, makes me
yeah.
insane.
Well, guys, if there aren't any more questions regarding the situation, it is as bad as it sounds. It's no joke. Stock up. Get everything that you are going to need over the next few years. Cotton, coils, as Nick said, some good mods, some good tanks, some good RDAs, whatever it is that you need to keep you off cigarettes. Stock up, because this can't last forever. You can't fight science. At the end of the day, the science is in, the science is out there, and eventually, people laughed at, philosophers and scientists in the 17th and 16th century with some of their crazy things like gravity. You're crazy.
Yeah.
The world is not.
The earth revolves
can't be
around the
round.
sun.
Yeah, and eventually science won, and I'm confident that vaping has touched so many people and helped so many people and made so many people healthier and saved so many lives. And there are governments and health institutes around the world, like the UK and the NHS, like New Zealand, that are pro-vaping. That eventually this has to win. But if we all give up and go back to smoking, it won't. So
Worst thing. Yeah.
don't go back.
Just keep yourselves going. Keep yourselves going until this breaks down, and then we'll be right.
Yeah, absolutely. Any words from you, Nicholas?
No, I mean, other than it's just heartbreaking. Honestly, it breaks my heart to think about people who smoke cigarettes that are now going to have to jump through some probably uncomfortable, awkward hoops in order to even get the chance to quit. It breaks my heart for people who have been quit for a really long time, who may have tapered down their nicotine, and now their only option is going to be more nicotine than they were vaping before. That bums me out. The lack of variety, the lack of flavors. There's so much about this that's heartbreaking. That, and most of all, I guess as an American, the idea that the government's just not listening in any capacity and is just arbitrarily kind of passing these things, for your own good type of thing. Whoa, that gets me in a real weird spot. It just does. And it's a bummer. And, my heart goes out to the vapors or the nicotine users in Australia. Stock up, and this is bound to fail. It's destined to fail. And I'm not saying that what comes after will be better, but this is not going to be long lasting.
Make sure that, if you're an Aussie, make sure you make these guys pay at the next election.
Absolutely.
For this absolute blunder.
Yeah.
Make them realize they really fucked up, and make sure you vote not Labor.
Yeah, I don't know how it works, but they seem like the bad ones.
They have to be accountable. Look, and I agree with what Nick was saying, that I get lots of emails from people who are frightened, anxious, angry, confused. And I think that is tragic when people have tried so hard to quit smoking, finally made it, and now we're putting all this onto them. I think that's a real tragedy. And the worst thing anyone could do is go back to smoking. And I think people should look at some of those options we've talked about to keep going until we can sort this out.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on the show. Big thank you to Colin, obviously, as Nick would put it, a heavyweight in the vape advocacy world. Heavyweight. And I appreciate you because, Colin's had a big surgery recently on his shoulder. He's still recovering from that. And, like a lot of us, I think he's felt very burnt out from the vape advocacy and just the absolute banging your head against a brick wall type situation we've been in.
Yeah.
And so I really want to thank you for continuing to fight on and advocate for smokers and vapors and harm reduction. And I hope that next time we do a video, it's with more positive news for the Australian vapors. And obviously, Nick, I love you, dude.
It's my pleasure.
You've been doing it a long time. You've been doing it really well, and I couldn't think of anybody better to have on here for an outsider perspective.
I'm all about it.
We'll keep spreading the word and keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, and listen, anything I can do ever to help, let me know. Anybody in Australia, hit me up. Colin, hit me up. You need anything? You let me know. I'm here to help.
Thanks,
Kills
Nick.
me what's going on.
Don't give up, guys. It's not over.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep fighting. I am gonna relocate, as you know, to the UK because I don't want to give this up, and so I will be continuing my fight from across the pond, in the UK. So it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop me. It's not going to stop you guys. It's just going to be real tough for a while. So fight on and vape on. Don't let as Nick would say, any crooked politician tell you otherwise, or in our case, try and stop you. Don't let them, because this is the far safer alternative. The science is in. It's 95% less harmful. It is the most effective way to quit smoking, and eventually the authorities are going to have to learn that and bow to that. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you to all the super chatters. If I haven't given you an individual shout out, I appreciate your attendance and viewership and any donations on the super chat. Thank you very much. And we'll be back. I'll be back with more videos. Nick will be back with the usual, and Colin will be in our corner fighting away, I'm sure. But until next time, guys, suburb your dicks and your tits off. Thank you very much for everybody, and we'll see you very soon.